What is up, everyone, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Island Time podcast. I'm your host, Solon Mihas, alongside Lucas Nola. Lucas, how you doing on this amazing day? It's a big day for us. Obviously, first episode. We've released a few clips, some stuff left and right, but this is the first official recording. So, how we doing?
Hey, dude, I'm happy that we're finally, getting the first full episode under our belt. Like you said, we have a few sound bites, few 2-minute clips here and there. But I'm happy we're finally getting the, first episode out.
Yeah, and then obviously this is our first time actually introducing ourselves to our audience outside of that one Instagram
Yep.
post that we made. Hit me with something. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Obviously, we're both from Long Island. I'll hand out the obvious. We're both from
Yep.
Long Island. We both went to Sacred Heart University. That's where we met. We don't live too far away from each other on the island, but shoot, how'd you become an Islander fan? How'd you get into the game?
I played hockey ever since I was 7. Obviously grew up a diehard Islanders fan. First game I ever went to, which was when I was like 10 weeks old. There's literally a picture hanging in the corner of my room with my mom holding me. I'm in like one of the giant oversized kids Islanders jerseys. But between playing and just growing up, in a huge hockey family, it's right from day one. You learn, to kind of eat, breathe, and sleep Islanders hockey for the good and the bad. I'm sure you can attest to that.
A lot of
Unfortunately, a lot of
bad.
bad. You know, it, both being 22 years old, not the greatest time being Islanders. Not now, at least. Now it's great, but over the past 22 years, I haven't seen much. But hey, things are trending upwards. I'm happy that we're doing this at the right time. Like you, I do stuff with sport broadcasting. That's what I'm looking to do in the future. And hey, listen, any chance I get to talk Islanders hockey, that's a win for me. So I'm happy that we're getting this on the road.
Yeah, nailed everything on the head. Similar to you. Grew up in a big Islander hockey family. From my mom's side, my grandparents had season tickets when the Islanders were winning their cups. Those four
Yep, same here.
four straight in the '80s. So obviously, being a fan around then, you don't lose the passion for the game, for the sport, for the team. So kind of grew up in an Islander environment. My first hockey game that I ever went to, I wasn't 10 weeks old, but it was actually, funny enough, John Tavares' first game, his debut. So that was pretty cool. I got to see an Islander Penguin game, first game. John Tavares' first game, got to see Crosby, Malk, and all those guys' first game. So I was really little, but
Yep.
experience I'll never forget, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
speaking
Funny you
of,
mention that. I have a picture right behind this camera of him from his first game. I'm literally staring
yeah,
at it. That's awesome. I didn't even know that.
yeah, no. So, I mean, kind of on the topic of not John Tavares, but who John Tavares was, he was our first overall pick in 2009. Fast forward 16 years, we get the first overall pick again. We get the first overall pick. A few weeks later, we fire Lou Lamoriello, and now it's a question of who our new general manager is going to be. We get the answer before the draft. It's Mathieu Darche, someone who grew up, learned everything he knows from the Tampa Bay organization. What a place to learn how to be a general manager, huh? Yeah, Mathieu Darche gets named new general manager of the Islanders. Obviously, he has the first overall pick fall right into his lap. He does nothing for it, but he gets it. They don't ask how. And he makes no mistake in the draft. We're going to get a little bit more in depth in terms of what he did and how everything unfolded. But initial thoughts on Mathieu Darche after being under Lou Lamoriello's kind of chokehold since 2018.
Yeah. So I know that we both mentioned this in the little clips. All praise to Lou. He's Hall of Fame, class act guy. I've been lucky enough to meet him once or twice. Nothing but good things to say to Lou. He put the Islanders back on the map, gained the Islanders a little more respect, pushed for UBS, and got us where we are today. With that, you kind of take the good with the bad. Some contracts, some rough stuff. So, they call Darch a wizard when it comes to the cap. And it's so evident in the way that he's done these first, few weeks, months as the Islanders GM. I mean, even just the small 2-year contracts, getting talent like Drew into the island when, again, everyone knows the Islanders aren't going to be anything for another 2-3 years at least before a window opens up. The fact that he's able to attract talent, he's respected where He's not going to get pushed around when it comes to, AAVs on contracts. All the deals that he signed are extremely team friendly. Players are willing to work with him, and that's a great sign. Even something as simple as this, what he did with Matt Martin. I don't really know if anywhere else you're going to get what happened with that. Obviously, lifelong Islander. He's mentioned, ironically enough, this past week in an interview, and I know he's said his entire career he wants to cut back on the island. So the fact that they bring him in to the front office with a position there for development purposes, that's all that I need to say with Darch. He's a class act. He knows his way around. And in this day and age, I mean, you'll speak more on it, but knowing how to work the cap and work with your players and management is number one. That's the end all be all. You have to know how to do that.
Yeah, and mentioning Matt Martin, I think, is huge. Not only in the fact that he's a fan favorite, everyone on the island loves him. It's also the fact that he gets put right to the front office pretty much before he even announces his official retirement. Um,
Yeah.
Assistant to the GM, or I'm pretty sure that's the official title of his position, but he's going in there and he's made it clear, hey, at some point I want to be a general manager in this league. Now, is that going to be on the island? Is that going to be elsewhere? Who knows?
Who
But
knows?
similar to what Darsh did, he learned, he grew in the Tampa Bay organization. He saw a thing or two, a few very good things in Stanley Cup Finals and championships, and now he's trying to take what he learned and build his own mountain. So we'll see what happens with Matt Martin. I know everyone within the Islanders organization loves Matt Martin in the position that he is. He's been doing a great job. So you see that translation a little bit. Sometimes you're a good player but not a good coach. Sometimes you're a better coach than you were a player. Management, it's kind of a full circle moment in hockey. And like you said, Darsh is a class act for keeping Matty around. I know that the fans love that. Matty loves it himself. And we'll kind of see where that goes. But I kind of want to swing back to the first little thing that I mentioned. And that's the fact that Darsh had the opportunity to do something that very few general managers get to do in terms of that being their first assignment for their new club, and that is pick first overall. Um,
Yeah.
this wasn't a draft where you have a Connor McDavid or a Connor Bedard or a Macklin Celebrini, even next year with Gavin McKenna. But you had to pick between a guy like Michael Misa, Matthew Schaefer, the hometown kid in James Hagans. It's more or less like he got put into a position that everyone wants to be in, but it wasn't necessarily the year where it's a clear cut number one. He had to sit and figure out, hey, what do I have on the island with this new team? And what's going to give me the best chance to kind of move forward? So I want to get right into the draft talk. The Islanders had a very big draft, probably the biggest draft in our lifetimes, realistically speaking.
I would
And
argue
I
in
don't
history, you could argue that.
I would even say in history, but I think history is pushing a little bit to start. I'd like to see where kind of this team goes because of this draft before I kind of put that title on it. But I'm very confident to say within our lifetime at least. And with that being said, I kind of want to just hop right into the draft and talk about that entire day because we were both at the draft party. Um, Obviously, unbelievable environment knowing what's coming. But earlier in the day, we got news that Noah Dobson got traded to the Montreal Canadiens. Or there were reports that he was going to get traded, and then obviously that's what ultimately happened. It was a sign and trade with Montreal. What were your initial thoughts on that, with that being Darsh's first big move as Isles GM?
So, obviously with him getting thrust to be picking first overall, obviously all the rumors, who are they going to take? Schaefer. Do they, trade back? Do they go Hagens? And that all played into this. There was rumors from the beginning that Romanov might be the guy that, sees his way out. Boston, a few other teams checked in on him. I personally don't believe those from who I know, my sources, and just from talking around with people around the league. He was always going to be there. So, you had to move somebody. And love Dobson. I know he has his flaws in the corners specifically. I think he's a little bit of a soft player, but hey, the offensive talent we've seen where his ceiling can be. He can be a 70-point guy very easily. His floor the past few years has been 40, 45 points on some not so great Islanders teams, horrendous power plays, so that doesn't help. In terms of the actual trade, when it went down, I had my hopes. When it first happened, my first reaction was it was a good trade for both sides. Montreal's ahead of the process where the Islanders are. Obviously, they are back in the playoffs this past year. The progressions of Slavkovsky, Lane Hudson, you've got Demidov who came over just at the end into the playoffs. Adding Dobbs into that team is extremely lethal. So it made sense for Montreal, and he wanted to be there. He's from
I
Canada, and it
mean,
made sense.
and listen, a 1-2 punch of Lane Hudson and Noah Dobson, that's going to be dangerous for a very long time.
Yeah, they got their whole careers. What is Dobson? Dobson's 25. I mean, Lane Hudson's he's going to be in the not Calder, Norris conversations for his entire career. So, like you said, not a bad 1-2 punch. And then you look at it from the Islanders' perspective. Um, you get the 2 picks, which I know you're going to want to talk a lot about that. You were a huge fan of those 2 picks.
Yeah.
You get those 2 big picks at 16 and 17, which again they did fantastic job on them, and then they get Heineman. So I want to quickly touch on him because I don't think many um, fans, I'll say, or many team know a lot about Heineman unless you are a religious Canadians fan. Heineman has so much talent. And Darch said this in a press conference a few days after this trade actually went down. And he said because he was with Tampa, he's like, every time I saw him over the 4 or 5 times I saw him this past year, he was one of their best players. And he was playing on the third line, sometimes the fourth line, or sometimes a healthy scratch. And he has so much talent and he's a good two-way forward. And in that trade, the big pieces are 16 and 17. But with the Islanders kind of, with Clutterbuck and Martin and all these older guys kind of seeing their way out, Heineman's a perfect replacement. And that was exactly what you were looking for in that trade. We needed a player out of that as well. I know that Voronkov was discussed and with Columbus and that whole other thing. And obviously that would have been a much better player. But the way the deal worked out, I'm going to let you talk on the picks because I know you're a big Agenson guy. But
Yeah.
no, I think it was a great trade for both teams.
I agree. I remember we were texting nonstop that morning with
All
everything
day,
going
dude.
on. Yeah, so aside from that being draft day, like you said, we got a player, 23 years old, relatively young player who has a lot of room to grow. I mean, Darsh said that he made it a point that he wanted Heineman in that deal. So
Yeah.
that definitely was a big factor in him kind of pulling the trigger and being like, all right, like I'm willing to do this. And then the second part is, like you said, the 2 picks. Those 2 picks, all right, we're not going to sit here and kid ourselves. We all expected them to trade those 2 picks, move back up into the top 5 or something in that nature, and select the hometown kid in
Yep.
James Higgins. That was the thought. That's what everyone expected to happen. That's not what ultimately happened. The Islanders kept the 2 picks, and I'm not going to sit here and lie to anybody. When we were talking, I told you, I don't think that this is a win if we keep both of those picks. I go, what is
I was with you
the
on that.
point? What is the point? But obviously, fast forward, like I said, sometimes you speak too soon. I loved everything that Darsh did. At the end of the draft, okay, I had some mixed feelings. But you sit back, you think about it, you let everything kind of digest, and you realize, hey, Darsh, quite honestly, played his cards perfectly with, I guess, the issues that he was given to move those 2 first rounders. So the obvious first overall pick, at least in my opinion, the obvious first overall pick was Matthew Schaefer. So that didn't surprise me in the slightest. Now you slowly start going through the picks. All right, 4th pick, Islanders don't trade up. 5th pick, Islanders don't trade up. Now you have Philly at number 6, and you're kind of like, ooh, like I didn't think Philly was going to be a team that the Islanders made that trade with. I kind of expected Boston to be the last team in contention to kind of make a trade with at that point. Obviously, it didn't happen. Boston takes the Long Island native. Now they have 2 of them on their roster, Charlie McAvoy and James Higgins. So Boston lucks out. They have arguably probably one of the best value picks of the draft, if not the best value pick of the draft. But with the 16th pick, which the Islanders kept, they arguably came back with the second biggest value pick of the draft in Victor Eklund. So the fact that Victor Eklund was there for us at 16 when, at least personally, I had him going in my top 10. I had him going 10th in my rankings.
Yeah,
That
I had him at
was
9. So
that was a big, hey, we did something good. Like that, there was an obvious draft pick. We took him. Okay, you know what? Like this isn't so bad. At the 17th pick, hey, we might move one pick, we might not. Who knows? They kept the 17th as well. They take Kashawn Aitchison. As you said a few minutes ago, I love Kashawn Aitchison. He impressed me a lot in the development camp, and aside from that, just look at the highlight tapes. Look at what he's done in the OHL. He scores goals. He's offensively very talented. He had, I want to say, 26 goals off the top of my head in 63, 64 games in the OHL this year as a defenseman. He could hit. He could fight. Like, in my opinion, I think he's a glorified Romanov. Call me crazy. Like, he's bigger than him. He's better offensively. And when push comes to shove, I think he's going to be a much harder hitter than Romanov is. And let me tell you, Romanov could lay a shoulder into a chest very, very, very well.
yeah, I think his ceiling is, it could be so much more, so much more. He could be a first pairing guy. Obviously, our left side is
I was going to
extremely
say,
well off
he
right now,
could be on a
but
majority of teams. I hope he's not on our team just because we have Schaefer, but that's the obvious.
of course, but putting, nothing wrong with depth, and we'll get into that later with the entire
Good problem
team
to
and where
have.
we're at. But 59 points in 64 games in the O. And you brought this all up to me. I wasn't as familiar with Aitchison's game. That night, when we drafted him, obviously, we both went on Twitter. All the highlights of him just Mack truck, hit after hit, and I was like, okay, but what did we get out of that? And then I start looking at that offensive ability and the fact that he can skate and how young he is. That was the biggest thing for me. The players that the Islanders drafted are all so young. Obviously, Schaefer being 17 years old, turning 18 in a little over a month, and he can't sign a contract yet. Then you have the other two who, obviously, they're 18, but they're not old for their draft year. They're pretty young in my opinion for their draft year, and they're in my opinion so far ahead of development and where some other players that went in the first round are going to be. Eklund already signed his ELC, and we'll get into that too. He could be on the island next year. He could be on the island as soon as now. I mean, they already said he's going to go back, to play with Djurgården in Sweden. But we could see all three of them. Schaefer we'll see this year. Eklund could be next year. Aitchison, I know he's going to go hopefully play NCAA, but year, 2 years, you're just adding to the farm system at this point.
No, and that's what it comes down to. Like, it's something that we preach all the time. I feel like if you're around us enough, we sound like a broken record. Islanders from a year ago, 2 years ago, complete 180 within the entire system. I'm not talking Lou Lamoriello's out. The Islanders don't have a leash around their necks. It's more of the Islanders had no prospects, and now their top five has one remaining, at least in my opinion, has one remaining player from their top five of last year, and that's obviously Cole Eiserman. So the Islanders, with Mathieu Darche, have completely flipped this prospect pool. At least this draft, 3 first-rounders, you can't really go wrong with that. Obviously, the first overall pick, like, that's probably the hardest pick to screw up. It's been done before. The Islanders have done that themselves a quarter of a century ago. But
A little DP.
aside from that, Mathieu Darche has pressed all the right buttons. He took Eklund. He takes Aitchison. Both of those players should have gone earlier in the draft. So the fact they fell to our lap and the Islanders pulled an easy trigger, that was the reason why by the end of the draft, when I woke up the next morning, everything kind of marinated. I understood what happened. I was like, hey, that actually went very well for what we were expecting and what we didn't get. But the one thing that I kind of want to touch up on is the fact that the Islanders didn't even stop after the first round. They had 6 picks in the second day of the draft. So for the remaining draft, they had 6 picks. That second round defenseman, Daniel Prokhorov, I think he made the biggest impression on me when I went to the development camp. That was one name that I saw nonstop up and down the ice, and I kept questioning to myself, who is this kid? Where did this kid come from? He's a moose, and he can move. He has some of the silkiest hands I saw at the development camp, and he could shoot. Oh, and on top of it, my favorite part about everything is he's a people person. He is all for the fans. Kid's 18 years old, straight from Russia. After the prospect scrimmage, he's getting jerseys, hats, just whatever you can imagine, tossed over the glass at him left and right. He's signing it, tossing it back with a smile on his face. I got a few really just cool videos, pictures of him doing that. And outside of the first round, the Islanders did a tremendous job. But that was one name that I want to point out because I really do think Prokhorov is going to be a problem in the NHL when he gets here in a couple of years.
Yeah. When they made that pick, I was the first one to text you. And again, another player where I knew the name but did not know his game. I really wanted Mitch Spence really badly. And obviously the Rangers picked him
Malcolm
directly
Spence.
after us. Malcolm Spence, I apologize. And him being Schaefer's teammate at Erie and just his
And being
abilities,
a projected
he
first
my
round pick.
I had him going in the mid-20s, and the fact that he fell that far, and I really, really wanted Spence, for so many reasons, and I was a little bummed out, and obviously the Rangers get him, but then we go through it with, like you just said, Prokhorov. I can't be mad again, just like with the first round. The expectation was that we were going to take Hagens and kind of had to like let it fizzle out and see where it ended up. Same thing with the second round and the rest of the draft. Right, Luca Romano, I think that was the third round pick.
Luca Romano was the third round pick, and
Yeah,
that's another name that I want to touch up on because
so
he's another
another
stud.
he's this kid's skating. He looks like Barzal skating. Like if you put a blindfold on them and did not give me a jersey number or anything, just black practice uniforms, he flies out there. He's got hands. Obviously Maggio hasn't panned out, but in terms of the Islanders farm system, he reminds me a little bit of him. A little smaller forward, but hands, can move, has all the skill in the world. He's just got to kind of put a little meat on the bones, get bigger. But again, that comes with time. That comes with being in the NCAA for a year or two. Comes with being in Bridgeport, which we will go down the road and discuss that. Rocky Thompson being our coach down there completely revolutionizes how the farm system works and how these guys develop. Like, we now want them here, not where like last year, historically
Mhm.
bad, kind of got to ship them off. Like, they're now going to be close to home, which is a big thing. People don't realize that you know having your top prospects be overseas, like Demidov. Demidov obviously is the best prospect in the league heading into this year. That's not a question. But
I don't
my
know. I
opinion,
don't
I'm
think.
going to say
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think you could put him
I think
above
he's up there.
Schaefer. Yeah, I have him at number 2, but
Ah,
that's only because I don't see many rankings having him above Schaefer, and I don't really think you can
I'll be
because
honest.
you're comparing a first overall
I,
pick here.
I got him at 1. That's just my own thing. I think that just from a readiness perspective, obviously him getting a few
Oh,
games in
okay. From
last
a
year helped.
readiness perspective,
But
that's different. Yeah.
yes, um, but having guys overseas sometimes works. Also, sometimes is
Hmm.
absolutely tragic. Look how long it took Igor Sorokin, all these guys from Russia to come over. Even like Plakov coming over at what,
Yeah. I was
25
gonna
years
say,
old.
granted,
Shabanov.
granted, they're goalies, but you're right. I
Yeah,
mean, you
but
could even take a player like Kirill Kaprizov of Minnesota. You know what I mean? I think
took
that's
him
the
took
best
him 4 years.
example. Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's the first thing that comes to
Breadman.
mind.
It's another one.
Exactly.
All those guys, and they took forever. It's like, hey, look, some do pan out. Those two
Mhm.
are best in the league right now. But then it's like, I'd rather have them close to home. Be able to, call them up. Hey, listen, you're not playing, but come down. Want to show you a few things. Talk to the coaches, and that's the biggest thing for me. Like watching whether it's Prokhorov or Schaefer talking like Boychuk, Seidenberg, the guys that have been there. They've won cups. And hey, they might not be as offensively gifted as these young guys are going to be, but to be able to sit here and say, hey, we got cup winners. They played on the island. They know what they're talking about. Hey, you're in our backyard. Come over and give you a few lessons. I think it's night and day.
100%. And then the other thing that I want to point out is just talking about the whole like training thing is it's not even about who the Islanders have. It's also like what these players do on their own. Like look at
Yeah.
Schaefer right now, who he's skating with. He's skating with Mark Giordano, former Norris Trophy winner. And Schaefer's expressed how much he's learned from him, how much he's just picking his brain just for himself to get ready to be in the NHL, to play at the highest level. So it's also the fact that these guys, aside from what the Islanders are giving them, they're doing it on their own to be better, which is obviously, I feel like something all prospects are doing, but it's something where when it comes to light and you know, hey, Mark Giordano, okay, he might not have a Stanley Cup, but he has a Norris Trophy. He played in the league until he was in his 40s. He knows what it takes to get there and stay there. So, and on top of everything, Giordano captained multiple NHL teams. So, like, just generally from Bridgeport to what these guys are doing on their own, from the Islanders draft, they had, would they have 9 picks? The first
Yeah.
5 of them, the first 5 picks were 5 picks that I noticed clear as day at the development camp when I went, because I was there for the prospect scrimmage and then the last day of development camp. I'm not sure if you were at any of the days, but we were definitely talking. Like we saw everything on social media, everything getting posted. But our 5 first picks from the draft were all picks that I noticed very evidently during the skates, and that puts a huge smile on my face because you notice the other guys too. But the thing is, those guys were selected first because they're supposed to be better. And you saw that kind of that shift in, I don't want to say skill, but there's a reason why somebody went first, second round, and then there's a reason why somebody went sixth and seventh round. And you could see the difference fairly easily. Um, but kind of shifting over from the whole draft scene and everything and getting into who Darche has signed and re-signed, one name that you kind of pointed out is obviously Eklund. Eklund signed his entry level contract. He's the only Islander draft pick from this year to have done so far. As we said, he's going back to Sweden. I was actually talking to a gentleman at a charity softball game that I was at on Sunday. So yesterday, or not Sunday, I meant Saturday. Yesterday, today's Sunday. Um, and I was talking to him about Eklund, just like, hey, what are your thoughts on him kind of putting pen to paper, knowing that he's going back to Sweden? He goes, you want me to be honest? He goes, he's going to go back to Sweden. He's going to play another year with Frondell, and then they're both going to come to North America. Now, whether he goes straight to the island or if he makes a pit stop in Bridgeport for a year, that's the first name that puts pen to paper. The first name that kind of makes sense to put pen to paper because he's a Euro. He's not a CHL or an NCAA kid. So it makes sense for him to put pen to paper, but I also like the fact that we're not rushing him. It's not, oh, hey, you put pen to paper, you're in the lineup, you're coming to North America. Let him develop another year in Sweden. Have him come over, whether he plays a year, half a year, whatever. It might be the similar situation to Callum Ritchie this year. Callum Ritchie's probably going to play X amount of games in the minors before he gets called up. I could see a similar situation there. But that's the one signing that we had from the draft class. We touched up on it a little bit. I don't know if you have any thoughts to add, but I don't hate it. Like I said, okay, it might be a little bit of a hot take, but I don't think Eklund's ready for the NHL yet. Obviously, that's a given, but I don't even necessarily think that I'd put him in the lineup next year, which I know next year meaning 26, 27. But I remember you kind of questioned me a little bit when I said that, and it's not the fact that I don't think he's ready skill-wise or mentally. It's the size. It's physically. So I personally, I would like him to come to North America, play a year in Bridgeport or a majority of the year in Bridgeport, and then let's just say we're in playoff contention. We have injuries. We need call-ups. He's going to be one of the first guys. But let him get his reps. Let him develop. Like you said, we're in no rush. Our window is not for another few years. So let's do it the right way this time around, and let's not screw up all of our prospects by sending them to Bridgeport and not developing them. You know what I mean? So I really like where this team is going, and on top of everything, I like Darsh's his patience with kind of the contract negotiations. He's not just pulling the trigger because he's scared of somebody leaving. All these guys are replaceable. They might have a special place in our heart because we love them as players and fans of the team, but realistically, there are very few players in this league that are non-replaceable.
Yeah. So this doesn't just go for Eklund and the players that were drafted or the guys that were signed. This is just a whole. So one similarity that I think is very distinct, and every GM, every coach in the industry, and this isn't just hockey. This is in every sport. They have their own identity that they want to build. We saw it with Lou and the way that he got guys. An identity sometimes fizzle out. And look at those Islanders teams under Lou. Never, Barzal was our best player, and I think he has every asset to be a superstar. I think on any other team, you put him on Colorado, the dude's a 100-point player.
I
Putting that
agree.
aside, look at that team just for 1 second from when we went to the conference finals. You had Leo Komarov on your first line. That team was on grit, identity, and the will to win. That's just flat out. So now fast forward, 7, 8 years from year one with Lou to now Darche. The identity that he's already building, anything from the players drafted to the guys that he signed, to having Matt Martin be his, we'll call it assistant GM, however you want to word that, to having Boychuk, Seidenberg, like these vets around the team 24/7.
And then the
That's
one
the
thing I want to
biggest
point
thing for
out is
me.
it's also his decision to keep Patrick Wall. We haven't mentioned that at all, and I feel like
Yeah,
that was the
it's
first correct move that he made when he was appointed general manager.
and it all starts. Look, does all start with the GM, but you got to have a coach that follows those same morals and mentality,
Mm-hmm.
just like you had Barry Trotz. No bullshit, straight to the point. Cut your throat open if you don't want to be, his friend. He'll be your best friend, but if you don't want to be on his side and you don't want to learn and follow with the group, he doesn't care. Patty, we all know how he was in Colorado when he first started as a coach and just that whole escapade. But hey, he's a changed man. He said it himself. Even and he makes mistakes. Even what happened with Duclair this past season, we don't know what was specifically said. We have a rough idea of the falling out, and he was one of his players in I think it was juniors, and they are very good friends off the ice. So for something like that to happen, little and Wah has came out and said it was very unprofessional. Apology in person, going out to dinner, like putting everything under the bridge, and I believe that it starts with ownership and identity, and to be able to see that from your GM within the first, from day one, but in these past few weeks and month and a half, 2 months of him being GM, and Patrick Waugh, even just as something as simple as that, being able to take ownership and back his guys, regardless of how bad a night may have gone. It's the means to an end. It's not going to be, problem solver this second, like you said these next 2 years, and like you look at the contracts, they're all 2-year deals. That third year, which is the 2028-29 season, that is the first year where this all becomes set in motion. Until then, it's a means to an end. But you have to be able to groom your players and groom the culture. And that's just the Islanders fans. That's Islanders fans. That's the team. I know nothing other than that in my 22 years of being a fan, even when my parents were fans, before I was born. I don't think I've heard one year where there's no culture, there's no identity. And it's fizzled out the past few years, but now it's, slowly the build back process. I'm happy you brought up Patrick Wall. It's such a big thing, and it goes so unrecognized, even into with Rocky Thompson and Bridgeport identity. He is literally, in my eyes, he is exactly what Patrick Watt is. A no bullshit guy. He's going to make sure everyone is on the same page, and he's going to do what is best. He's going to develop these guys. He wants to win. He doesn't want to be there and be crap, whether you're Ethan Bear and you're a vet, or you're Eklund next year and you might get called up the next night. He doesn't care who you are. You are there to win. You're playing for the team that and the crest that's on the front of your jersey, not the name that's on the back. And I'm so happy to see that going forward. It's so important to know that.
Yeah, and that's one thing I want to dig into a little bit before we get into like specifics of who they've signed and re-signed. It's the whole Bridgeport identity. Like as an Islander fan, like we're used to that word identity. Like we had the identity line for how many years, that fourth line, that unforgettable fourth line.
My whole life.
But it's like Bridgeport has always been a place where, hey, our prospects need to avoid Bridgeport. That's where careers go to die. Now Rocky Thompson, okay, maybe not next year, but in the coming years, Rocky Thompson is going to flip that team, that organization, and it's going to be somewhere where you want to send your players to develop, to grow before their time in the NHL is, I guess, there. Um, the Islanders, the Bridgeport Islanders had the worst. What was it? They had 4 wins at home, which is tied for the least
Yeah.
amount of home wins in a AHL season. So number one, like you can't get much worse than you were last year. So no matter what Rocky Thompson does, it's going to be better. The real question now is how much better. But a lot of these signings that Mathieu Darche has made was to help Rocky Thompson. They're minor league signings. They're guys that, all right, you're going to sign them to minimal deals. You're going to put them in Bridgeport and you're going to help build that culture. You're going to help restart what was knocked down by the years of just hardship down in Bridgeport. That started way before the Lamarillos took charge, so I'm not even going to sit and point fingers. Obviously, the Lamarillos didn't help Bridgeport, but they're not the reason why it is what it is now. But into more specifics, I have a list over here of guys that the Islanders re-signed. Julien Gauthier, I love that signing because he's a good depth guy. You could call him up. He's gonna pay his dues in Bridgeport. He's a guy where you want your younger players to be around him. He's a guy where in Bridgeport, he's gonna help a Callum Ritchie, someone like him. So right off the bat, love that signing. After that, the obvious Romanov, Tony D, Simone Holmstrom. Gatcomb gets re-signed. I know we spoke a little bit about him. We love Gatcomb and just what he brings to the table. And then you have Tisplikov. The Romanov deal was unbelievable. 8 by 6.25. He's going to be your number one left-handed defenseman until, like we said, Schaefer and Aitchison are ready to take those next steps. Tony D, a 1-year deal, just under $2 million. That's your quote-unquote Dobson replacement. Yes, he was on the team last year, but he joined the team late. He came halfway through the season. He showed promise. Some people called me crazy for wanting me to keep D'Angelo, but
I wanted him so bad.
Listen, I understand personal matters, this, that. Looking at him from a hockey perspective as a player, he did what the Islanders needed and more. And with how hard it is to sign good right-handed defensemen, or how how infrequent it is for them to hit the market, the Islanders almost it was a need to sign D'Angelo, because who else were you going to have on that right side? Okay, yeah, you signed Ethan Bear, but Ethan Bear is not a Tony D'Angelo. He's not going to run your first power play. He's not going to play those big minutes, be reliable. Tony D'Angelo is a very, very good hockey player. He's a 60-point defenseman in the NHL. Simone Holmstrom, no complaints. 2 years, just under $4 million a season.
Prove it deal.
That's what I mean. I've said it time and time again. Holmstrom has proved he's a solid middle six in this league. People don't respect him. People don't know his name, and it's because of who he plays for. As an Islander fan, it sucks to say, but that's the reality.
That's the truth.
Like Simone Holmstrom, like you used Colorado as an example before. I'm going to use Colorado again. If Simone Holmstrom's on the Colorado Avalanche, he has better recognition around the league. And then Tisplikov, they just settled that. Tisplikov, it had to happen. Okay, he could have had a better rookie season last year, but it's the adjustment game. Like we said, playing in Russia, playing in the U.S., 2 different games. Yes, hockey's hockey, but you look at the KHL, they have a lot of Olympic-sized rinks. The NHL, it's a different game. That's what it is. Like, didn't you see that video of Michkov a couple days ago where he was talking about the dump and chase, how
Dump and
he hates
chase,
that?
yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, it's something as similar as that. Michkov's the example. The reason why I'm using that example is because Michkov grew up in Russia. He grows up in Russia. He does pretty much, or I'm assuming he has a similar upbringing to Tispagov in terms of hockey because they're both Russian. They both grew up over there. Tispagov isn't at the same skill level, but the point that I'm having is it's a different game. So all those re-signings are all spot on because they're assets that literally help every point of your organization from the NHL to the AHL. The last signing I'm gonna mention is, well, I said it, but Gatcomb. Gatcomb's a two-way guy. Okay, he's most likely gonna be a healthy scratch for a decent amount of the season, but realistically, somehow, some way, he ends up in Bridgeport for a long period of time. That's the kind of guy that I want Callum Ritchie to learn from, at least in the minors. Because in the minors, you're not going to get those superstars to help you out, but you're going to get those veteran guys who have the NHL experience, who have been there, done that, whether it's on and off, and you're going to take what you can from them before you take that next step. So, unbelievable work by Darche with all those re-signings. Hit me with the facts. How do you feel? Is there one that you like better than another? Is there one that you don't like?
Yeah, so when you're talking about overall signings, and I'll kind of start with what's going to be on the actual, opening night roster. Have no issues with any of the contracts. Obviously, very happy that Romanov got done. Siplakov, I think, is going to take a massive step. It's also very tough. Listen, hey, no shame to Gakholm, McLean, but look, just I want people to realize See, Vlakov played on that fourth line for most of the year. He started on the second line. It went okay, and then as the injuries kind of piled up, and it was like the season's kind of like a lost cause. He just slowly dropped down. Obviously, then what happened to Claire and the whole nine of that. I think he has a much better year. I've got him putting up a 50-point season. I think he ends up with like 16 goals, 15, 16 goals. I think he shoots a little bit more. He has a great shot. And I know he even said it himself. Like, he kind of had to it took him like 30, 40 games to adjust. Like you said, obviously, rink size, just every little thing matters. Um, he also is a playmaker. We saw that firsthand. You're making backhand sauce pass across the crease to Gatcomb. And again, nothing to Gatcomb, but it's like to a fourth liner. And you guys, that was where you were most productive. Okay, cool. I want to see you do a little bit more on with better people around you. Um, Always been a big Holmstrom fan. Some players take a little bit longer to develop and pan out, and that's just again part of what's going to happen with Bridgeport. So it's not 5-6 years down into their career where they're having a coming out party. It's more of year 3. Um, hey, he's gotten better every year. Last 2 years, 2 years ago he had 15 goals. Given like 8 or 9 of those was shorthanded.
Well, that's
Fine.
my point. Like, aside from the production side, he's so good on the special teams, which is what gives JG Pajot his value. You know what I mean? Like being a
Yeah.
a special team special team specialist, and then so good in the face-off dot.
And with that, because those two play together a lot, especially on the penalty kill. Not only just sometimes on that third line, but then Holmstrom had a 20-goal year this year, and he had to step up. With injuries to Barzal for most of the year, Duclair's absence, Siplakov getting bumped down. He played at minimum a night. He was playing top 6 minutes. You're pushing 18, 19, 20 when he would be playing like 13 or 14 on a given night. And there'd be nights he'd play more, but he's going to get a bigger role. He's now gained the trust of Patrick Waugh, and it's great because now he's in a position where, hey, the cap's going up. I know you wanted more money, but here you go, and it keeps you in RFA. That's the big thing again, where the wizardry of Darche comes into play. Keep all your cards close to you. Or if hey, you do really well, we can't come to an agreement. You want 7-8 million? Cool. We'll trade you when the time comes when everyone's up. But he's going to take a jump. D'Angelo is going to be fantastic for us. And now I look at the minors. So this is again, I just keep reverting to this. This is the big thing for me. So Ethan Bear, veteran, and if for some reason there was injuries, I knock on wood and hope there's not. If there are injuries, obviously Boquist is your 7, but then to know that you have the likes of Ethan Bear as a veteran presence as your 8, that's fine.
Yeah, but
Obviously,
listen, and
on
then you got
defense you have.
Isaiah George too.
I
Like
was
the
about to
list
say
keeps
that.
going.
So defensively you have them, and then you have guys like saying that Richie starts down there, and let's say Engvall starts down there. You have either guys ready for the league or guys that should be up. So you have Engvall, Gauthier, Ritchie. Putting aside Maggio and all them, you have Matthew Highmore, who they signed. So right there, you have at least two lines of guys that should be in the league. Or yeah, I'm going to say Ritchie because realistically, he'll be up there at some point when Pajot is inevitably traded. But it's such a different script. We went to school literally 15 minutes away from their arena, and I had no interest in going to watch a game on a given night. You couldn't even give me a
Yeah.
free ticket to go, and
No.
I could give you, one or two, Isaiah George, Skark, and I know everything about the Islanders. You do too, but to your point of where the development and prospect pools come, last year, heading this time, 1 year ago to date. Who even saying our number one prospect is Maggio? It's
A
like,
year
and I
ago
don't even know if you
today.
can name
Well, after Cole Eiserman, it gets a little tough.
putting
After Cole Eiserman, maybe
putting
like a Quinn
Yzerman aside.
Finley. Oh,
But
maybe a Quinn Finley. But that's
let
keyword
me
is
let
maybe.
me rephrase that. Putting aside, okay, prior to the draft last year,
Okay,
prior to Quinn Finley, Bednarik, Yzerman,
it's
it's
Maggio,
Isaiah
or
George, it's Isaiah George and Maggio. But again,
and then it's
there's no conversation outside of that.
yeah, no. There is. I'm blanking right now, and I feel so dumb. Ishkakov, or what was his name? Russian kid.
Right before he went back to Russia, Ruslan Isakov. And again,
Yeah.
but another that you can add to the long, lengthy list of guys that went to Bridgeport, died, never got a chance, and didn't pan out. Now you fast forward a year and a month or two. And the fact that, we had this conversation up, and it's up on our Instagram, but with the top 10, we did a top 5 prospect pool each, and we were pretty similar. But then we discussed in a clip. You could argue now you could say top 10, and it's a conversation. Like, we would have a conversation of one or two
Mhm.
to what I just said. Now it's, well, you're looking at, Aitchison at 6 or 7. Shabanov is somewhere in there. You have Quinn Finley, Camille Bednarik, and now all of a sudden, your number 1 or 2 and Isaiah George and Maggio are like 11, 12, 10, 11, 12, which is awesome. Again, great problem to have. But what they did for signings and depth overall, they know that they're not going to be a contender this year or even next year, but they put themselves in a position where, hey, we have a good enough roster where we can go out there, make some noise, and be a fringe playoff team. If people stay healthy, Sorokin is a good year, and there's a lot of ifs and buts with that. But they're not a bottom 10 team. Darche isn't playing for bottom 10. None of them are, and again goes back to identity. No Islander team in my life ever came out in a season or a night and been like, yeah, no, we just don't care. Like, we're playing for a bottom pick. And some teams do that. I'm sorry. I just think it's, to the game and just the way that things go, I think it's ridiculous. So, um, to see the way things are progressing and developing at such a rapid rate as compared to what I've seen in my lifetime, could not be happier.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed everything on the head. It's just the direction that this team has taken in the last couple of years, something that we've never seen, never experienced. But it's also the fact that Mathieu Darche has come in and he's polished every corner of this roster, of this
Yep.
organization already. One thing that we've mentioned time and time again is depth. Yes, like the Islanders might not be the deepest team in terms of like, hey, they're going out there and winning cups, but looking down the line, the Islanders are sitting pretty, and that's the truth. Um, but like I just said, he's polished every side of this roster with depth that they didn't have. The one thing that I want to talk about that we haven't really spoken about, you mentioned obviously Sorokin having a good year. The Islanders focus, or not focus, but they rely on Sorokin so heavily that, okay, yes, I agree. Like, your starting goalie, I have no problem with him playing 60, 65 games, but that's assuming he can handle it. Not saying
Yeah.
Sorokin can't handle it, but when Varlamov's hurt, the Islanders didn't have a third
Was
string
such a
that's
problem.
that's capable of playing in the NHL. Hodgberg is not an NHL goalie. So to have him on the bench, have him play once every 20 games or whatever Like, he played a couple games. Like, I was not comfortable. I don't care if you're playing the San Jose Sharks. But with that being said, one of the best signings of the offseason has been David Ritchie. David Ritchie is going to be in the minors if Varlamov's healthy, blah, blah, blah. But Ritchie's going to get his reps in the minors. If, hopefully not, but if Varlamov gets hurt, now the Islanders have another backup plan. They have a career backup who you could rely on, assuming a Varley or, God forbid, a Sorokin injury, which I think that's not spoken enough about just because the Islanders goaltending, okay, yeah, they have Sorokin, but other than Sorokin, the Islanders goaltending has not been good since Varlamov's
No,
kind of digress.
no. One game that I immediately go to, um, it was Skarek in net because we were so depleted. Hogberg with the broken pinky, I think it was.
Yeah, I was
Obviously,
going to say
Varley,
Hosberg got hurt as well,
whatever
so
it
then we
might
had to
be,
dive even
and
deeper.
you've got Skarek in net. Like, look, there are sometimes extenuating circumstances where you're on your fourth string. Fine, whatever. But watching him play against the now two-time back-to-back defending Cup champs, uh, I didn't turn off the game because, you know, I wanted to see. I was almost so interested in to see how it would go, and they went down so quickly, and 2-0, 3-2, came back, and then blew it, and then lost 6-3, I think it was. Um, but I look at past goalie tandems that the Islanders have had, and this almost like a safety net with one another. Again, putting extenuating circumstances aside, where you're on your third or fourth string, as on a nightly basis. Um, I'm going all the way back to the days of Halak and Grice. You have Halak and Grice. You have Grice and Robin Leonard. Um, Obviously, then you can come to more of a today's present. Sorokin and Varley have been the guys for the past like 4 or 5 years. Um, Having a tandem in this league is so critical, not even just from an injury perspective, but to know on a nightly basis you're going to get elite NHL level goaltender, or at least somebody that's going to keep you in the game and not let in, 3 goals on 15 shots. And unfortunately, you look around the league, there's a lot of teams like that it's like you can't sit here and say, oh yeah, like if your goalie's able to play 60 games, that's great. But those other 20 games, if your backup is, extremely mid and he loses 5 of those, he wins 5 of the 20. Okay, so you got 15 losses, and we haven't even discussed your starter. And it's a big deal.
Yeah.
You can look at really any team, and there's some that don't even have a legit starter. I look at Philly, Pittsburgh. Like, you can kind of go through the list on that. Um, I can applaud. I hate the Rangers, but I can applaud what they're doing with like Jonathan Quick. Even at
Listen,
his
but
age,
the
like
Rangers are
it's
also a team that I feel like have a goalie at all points. Like, they went from
yeah.
they went during their transition from Hank to Igor, they had Hank, Igor, and Georgiev all on the roster. Hence why they had to move
Getting
Georgiev.
before Hank, you got Richter. Like, they have
Yeah.
not had a bad goalie in 3 decades. Which
Yeah,
again, I sit back and laugh, but
and that's also a testament to their goalie coach. It's like when you have certain consistency and you know what works, you kind of take that from player to player. And when you get a guy like Richter and you go to Hank and then you go to Igor, it's fairly easy for a coach to be like, hey, like, I'm getting a very talented, a very gifted goalie time after time. Let me just do what worked last time. Obviously, make some adjustments here and there, but you have a blueprint. So the Rangers, like you said, like,
yeah.
props to them. Like, they're probably one of the best teams at developing goaltenders, and you can't even argue that. Like, as an Islander fan, like, it kills me to say, but it's the truth.
Yeah, again, 3 straight decades. Need I say more?
Yeah, yeah. So it's the David Ritchie signing was one that really stuck to me just because of kind of the situation that the Islanders have been in. It's a career backup. He's going to spend a majority of the season in the minors, but when push comes to shove, shoot, you have something in your head I want you to say
Yeah,
before
no,
you
I
forget.
do want to say something to what you're. So listen. We don't know what the severity of the Varley injury is. I personally think, and at least from what I've been told, and this was a few weeks ago, and things can change rapidly. I don't think Varley's ready. I think Big Save Dave is going to be our backup to start the year.
Oh, and it's very possible. I'm
I
just
look at
saying, yeah.
no, yeah, and I love it. Again, to your credit, I love everything about it. You
Mm-hmm.
have a safety net.
Yeah, and that's my point. Like you said, Varley might not be ready. Whatever the timeline is, if he's not ready, I'm more than comfortable putting obviously David Ritchie on the bench. That's not a question. But from the second that he's going to be your third string, assuming that everyone's healthy, you're putting him in the minors. He's getting his reps, and then he comes up and it's like, okay, you know what? Like we're still fresh. I haven't been sitting on the bench for the last 25 games, whatever the case is.
Yep.
And then just two more notable free agent signings. Jonathan Drouin. I think that's awesome. Obviously, we had Duclair last year. We'll see where that goes. Obviously, it wasn't as good of a year as we expected. Jonathan Drouin, though, he brings a different type of energy. He has a certain swag to his game where I think, like, when he was young in the league, I really thought he was going to develop into a superstar. So if you put him in a situation where he gets confident, he gets hot, he's playing with the right guys, Drouin's a good player. Look at what he did in Colorado. Ooh, he was playing with
37 and
Nathan
43.
McKinnon. Yeah,
So good.
he was playing with Nathan McKinnon. Cool. Like, nice. Can I please remind everyone that Matthew Barzal had 85 points in his rookie season? Matthew Barzal had 66 assists or whatever it was in his rookie season. Like, he's playing with capable players. Now it's just a matter of just finding that spark. It might be easier to find that spark with McKinnon, but that's like putting someone on a line with McDavid and say, hey, screw this up. Don't be successful. It's one of the hardest things you could do when you're playing with a top 3 player in the world. So Jonathan Drouin, I think he's going to mesh well. I hope he meshes well. And then the other one is obviously Maxim Shabanov. I mean, this guy's a walking highlight reel. I know you love this guy. We all love this guy. You just, like I said, you look at the tapes and you could only imagine what he brings to the table. And I think if Lou Lamoriello is still around, he's going to the Rags instead of us. And part of the reason is just because of the hold that Lamoriello had on the organization. So the Islanders kind of being that team where Shabanov came this year. Last year was Tisplikov. You got guys like, they're not the biggest name guys, but guys like Drouin, guys like Drouin, Duclair. And then having now the prospect pool that we do, guys like Schaefer, Ritchie, like I keep going down the list. We are slowly becoming a market where guys want to come and it's like, hey, why don't we play on Long Island? So everything that Darche has done so far has kind of pointed fingers to, hey, you know what? We're here to build a winning culture. It's going to take some time, but stick with us because we will get there again. Like this fan base has really struggled for the last number of decades and essentially our entire lifetimes, other than 5 years from 2016 to 2021, when we won our first playoff series and then we make 2 conference finals. Other than that, we haven't seen success. We don't know what success is. I look at my parents and my grandparents and ask them, hey, what does it feel like to win? And even they're like, hey, I was a kid. So it's exciting.
Yeah.
It really, really is.
Yeah. I don't even have anything to add with that in regards to how excited we are, just everyone at the Islanders fan base. I just look at the draft party, and not even just from the fan perspective. The players that were there, it's a different tone. Look at Barzal. Barzal was there, and he obviously had the injury, and I know that he was still nursing it around draft time. And that by now he's good and healthy and ready to go. But
I mean, he hit 2 hole-in-ones in a week, so like he should be half
I
decently
just saw that
okay.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that and then proceeded to look at the rest of his scorecard and I saw a few doubles and triples. But besides the point, you know, just the vibes that they all gave off. Anyone from your top players of Matt Barzal, and then you flip the script to even your third pair defenseman, Mayfield, Pollock there, even Shannon Hogan and Thomas Hickey. Everybody in that building knows where this team is now going and just how everything, with the snap of a finger, it's like night and day. You
Yeah,
wouldn't see that emotion. Maybe on the ice, but like I'm
exactly.
saying, off the ice, how excited. And it's contagious. It's gonna run right through the fan base. It always does.
No, I mean, but that's also the thing. It goes back to, and I know, like, it's really not a hit on Lou, but the way that he ran his organization was very old school. I spoke
Outdated.
to, or there were a number of whatever when the old Islanders and players they were talking. It was one of the former guys. I want to say it was when John Tonelli and Butch Goring they were talking. And something that was brought up was how John Tonelli saying how all these prospects, like he gives them props for how much attention they're getting and kind of the whole social media aspect of what the world's become. And he's
That's the
saying
day and
how
age, though.
no, it's the day and age and they know how to handle, but he's comparing it to, hey, when I got drafted, he goes, there was no social media. The Islanders were trying to keep your profile as low as they could. Now it's almost like, hey, like if you're not a big profile on social media, well, who are you? You know what I mean? But it's one of those things where there's a lot more pressure, there's a lot more eyes on you. When imagine being a Mike Bossy esque player today. You know what I'm saying? Like imagine those guys having the social media, the criticism, being able to just go online and looking at the comment section and just having people criticize you. Okay, yeah, you got those few people that are praising you too, but dude, there are some people that love to just
Yeah,
be
it's
keyboard
bad.
warriors. You know what I
I
mean?
know
So
you
it's
see
like,
it. Twitter, Instagram.
yeah. So it's one of those things where it's like you hear it from pretty much a franchise icon in JT, the real JT, and you kind of like think about it. And it's like, okay, like we're the same age. Like I understand. Like yeah, it's the day and age. Like we go through the same thing. Not go through it because we're not, but it's like in terms of social media. But truth be told, it is impressive because these kids being at the level that they are, you just open up Instagram and there's just an ESPN post about you. There's everyone like Schaefer breaking out into tears. Like, yeah, that was an emotional moment. That was a good moment. But it's like, yeah, having that circulate everywhere, yeah, it's cool. You just got drafted into the NHL, but that's not how it was 40 years ago.
Even just like, and I'm gonna use this guy just because I before we hopped on, I opened up Instagram and it was the first thing there. You got guys going on podcasts. I think it was Empty Netters, and it was Will Smith, and he's just talking about him openly to the world of him DMing Tate McRae, like even something stupid like that,
No, no, no. I know the video that you're
unhockey,
talking
not
about. I know the video you're
exactly, and
talking
it's
about.
not
The empty
hockey
netters,
related.
they asked
Uh,
him, they go, oh, if you had to like kiss, marry, or kill somebody, they gave him three options. He goes,
and it
Mary
was,
Kate McRae, easy. Something along those lines. Yeah, that video was
but
awesome.
it's not hockey related, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, day and age, but they it goes viral. It's everywhere. I think I saw that, and then 10 minutes later, I saw it again. I have people sending it to me. It's like you're gonna get hockey questions. Obviously, that's
Yeah.
from interviews and just if you are able to go on podcasts. But like from an Islander standpoint, I don't remember the last time an Islander. Actually, I think I do. The last time an Islander went on a show or a podcast prior to where we are now, it was NHL Network, and the year. This was the second year we played Tampa, and it was after the second round, and it was Barzal had hopped on there, from his hotel room, and after they had beat Boston, and he hopped on for like 2 minutes, but there was no emotion into it. It was just basically like quick questions like how you guys preparing, all that stuff. Obviously, they do that with all the teams, interviewing the last four for the conference finals, but I cannot tell you in between that period of time. So 4 years ago now, now about to be five to now. When was an Islander last on a podcast? I mean, obviously you got Schaefer on Spit and Chicklets.
Well, yeah, but then again, it brings me back to the post Lou. You know, I think your mic's muted. Did you mute yourself? Looks like we lost one of the island boys. Wow. Okay. Are you back? Can you hear me? All right. Yeah, yeah, we're back. But yeah, I mean this team is heading in the right direction. Um, everything Darsh has done, everything that this team has done has been incredible. I don't have any objections. Obviously, along the way, like we said, we've had a few question marks, but the question marks ended up getting answered fairly quick. So we have about a month or so before. Oh, Wow. All right. So
Yeah, I
this
have no
thing's
idea why I'm double.
no, it's all good.
Okay, now we're
Little
good.
technical
Now we're good.
difficulties, but
Yeah, I have no idea
getting
what's
back to
going
what
on.
I was saying, it's also we're about a little over a month before training camp, or about a month and a half out of training camp. These guys are putting in the work. These guys are getting ready, and I'm excited to see what gets kind of done on the ice. Like these guys from the development camp, just the new personalities to the way that you see this fan base is really there's a certain camaraderie that I haven't felt from this fan base in a very long time, and it makes you feel good when you go into Northwell and they pack the entire practice arena for Matthew Schaefer, and he's skating off the ice for the last time for the development camp. He's hyping up the crowd. He's saluting the crowd. He's getting a standing ovation. Wow, you haven't
Yeah.
you haven't seen something like that growing up as an Islander fan in forever. So just to be able to see that, to be able to experience that, the one word we use is excitement, and that's really the only word you can use because right now the Islanders are heading into a direction that they haven't before. So time will tell. They're pressing all the good buttons right now, and I'm hopeful. For the first time in a long time, I'm hopeful, and I say it genuinely.
Yeah, no, I again, I'm right there with you. First time I can really say heading into a season for the future, at least. It's an exciting time to be a fan.
Yeah. I mean, listen, that's all the time we have. That's gonna wrap up the podcast. But like we said, the Islanders are heading in a unreal direction from the draft to free agency to pretty much all the front office shifts and changes that they've made. They've all been to the benefit of the organization, and that's what you're looking for as a fan. That's what you're looking for. So great time to be an Islander fan. A lot to be excited for, and we'll talk a whole lot more Alice hockey from now on. But that concludes episode 1 of the Island Time podcast. So once again, I'm your host Solon Mihas alongside Lucas Nola. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us. Till next time.